What's up, folks? Back with another reaction, back with some more Duran Duran. We're going to go back to their 1990 album Liberty once again. One of the most enjoyable things for me is as this channel's gone along and more Duran fans have found their way here to hear all the different opinions about songs and albums and periods of the group. This album and maybe a couple others, including one I like a lot, Medazzaland. Pop Trash, I've heard that, there's been a few albums that seem like by consensus they're just great albums. The 81 self-titled, Rio, All You Need Now, most people seem to like. Paper Gods, maybe a little bit different. I remember there were a few people who didn't like Danceophobia, but I think generally speaking, most Duran fans like that. But I realize there's a number of albums, especially like around the turn of the millennium, that have sort of split opinion. So yeah, I am conscious of these things as I continue to go through the albums, so it is something that I've been thinking about. But yeah, I am enjoying, or I've enjoyed the first two songs of this album. So again, even though I know it's not everyone's favorite, I know Ron, he mentioned he loves this album above all else. No, I kid. But yeah, I get that there's a split opinion about it, but yeah, so far so good is I guess what I would say. I enjoyed the first two tunes. Including the album title track, which is interesting. There's been a couple times I feel like they've done the first track of the album as the title track, and in this case it was the second song, which seemed a interesting placement. But yeah, we're up to a tune called Hothead. Just as a label or a derogatory term, it typically refers to someone who is emotionally overly quick to respond, flies off the handle is often a phrase that will be used. Someone who goes from 0 to 60, someone who accelerates from a sort of stable, resting, emotional or behavioral state to a very sort of intense and indeed exaggerated emotional state, meaning like the implication is that their emotional reaction does not correspond to the stimulus that precipitated it. So yeah, there seems to be an implication of a lack of clarity or a lack of legitimate response on the part of whoever the hothead is. Now obviously it could be used as sort of like a metaphor, or it could relate to like a class of person, not necessarily a particular individual per se. So we'll have to see how it manifests and if I can pick up enough lines to sort of get a read on it. Again, especially with Duran Duran tunes I haven't heard before, there is always that sort of layer of opacity. It usually takes me a few listens as well as very helpful and instructive comments from a number of you before I start getting like a fuller sense of the themes and the ideas at play. But regardless, let's get to it. This is Duran Duran, Hothead, from their 1990 Liberty album. Or it should be, but it wouldn't. Okay. Alright, the rock sort of feeling that a few people mentioned, I feel it here. I like the sort of dissonant, misty synth.
It may take nature 3 years, the experts say, to make up for the damage done. Ready for pictures as they roll, we see the planet lose control. The average predator.
Environmental sort of tune. Like, hey, what the hell are we doing?
Evolution, non-stop evolution.
Ooh, the guitar solo right there.
Evolution, non-stop evolution.
Like that ghostly layer. Cowbell now. Epistemology we're touching on. What is knowledge and how do you acquire it?
You'll change the course of history.
I'm amused by these like spoken word samples,
Non-stop evolution.
conclusions of lines. suspect. I feel like there's a lot of commentary here. Like slap bass.
Turn me off. Right now I'm suffering from this culture shock. Spread confusion wherever
Culture
you
Shock,
can.
a great band.
And shaking hands. You propaganda to manipulate. When they make up bucks, you protect the state. Let the body break and the body tumble. So you build it up, then you watch it crumble.
There's a lot of commentary
Time
here.
will change the picture.
Be accusing someone of protecting the state.
Time will change the picture. Evolution, non-stop evolution.
I'm wary of time as a personified force, though.
Time will change the picture. Evolution, non-stop.
Interesting. I gotta hear that again. There's a lot of interesting lyrical themes at play there. And again, I think, I heard that first verse and it like, okay, so it's sort of like an environmentally conscious song, and then it was like, oh, but it's talking about like, how can you know what's true, or I forget exactly what the line was, but it seemed to be getting at epistemology, and there's information coming from different directions, but discerning the knowledge wheat from the like bad information chaff is a more difficult task, depending on sort of the situation you find yourself in. And then again, there were lines where like you seem to be accusing someone of using their effort to protect the state. So yeah, a few things at play there. Definitely got to hear it again. But yeah, like even just in terms of the lines that I did pick up, it seems like it's not so much about, say, like, interpersonal sort of emotions and so on, but it's like the scope of that song seemed bigger than I thought maybe at first. Musically, I enjoyed it. I will say, like, there were sections where it felt like very stripped down. It felt like something you might have heard on maybe Notorious, but like with a bit like tighter or like more stripped down kind of production. So I did enjoy it. Again, maybe not like my favorite Duran song musically ever, but that's not exactly a criticism. And I did enjoy the tune. I enjoyed the guitar sort of lick, if you will. There were a couple really interesting synth moments. The first, again, it was sort of like a misty kind of pad synth, and then there was that like ghostly, maybe it was like a choral layer, but it was like, there were effects on it, I think. That was cool as well. So yeah, I enjoyed it, and lyrically I really want to listen to it again and sort of pick up on more of the specifics of what's going on there. So do let me know if there's some lines that are particularly instructive in that regard. Other than that, thank you for listening and watching. I will see you next time. Peace.